I'm the upper house candidate for the Labor DLP in this region, and I'd like to give you an insight as to what our position on this issue is. I have to say I'm not a prospector, but our Federal Secretary is, and I am a bush user, having been a scout and living in regional Victoria. I'm a resident of Ballarat. Our position is quite straightforward. Just like the bush users group, we are not opposed to sensible land management, including the establishment of national parks where necessary, but they should only occur after years of open and transparent consultation.
Absolutely.
And exhaustive studies of what that impact will be on local communities and the industries and groups that use that area in the Victorian public land. We don't believe that large tracts of land should be locked up away from public use. It needs to be beneficial for the community and the economy. Public land is just that. It should be for the use of the public, and that's you. So prospectors, campers, all sorts of people should be able to use the public land and be able to benefit the economy in that way by coming through small towns and supporting that local economy. Many of the DLP members come from rural and regional areas. We understand that the need to manage land for the benefit of all, but not just a few, and particularly those few in the city who would be imposing changes. This attitude doesn't just stop with the bush. There are many ordinary Australians who live in the city but who love to get away and enjoy a simple thing in life and explore and expose their kids to camping, bushwalking, prospecting and a myriad of other activities that are part of our life as Australians. We love the bush, it's part of our heritage, whether for thousands of years or just for recent years. We have a connection to this land, and that connection needs to be honoured for all of us, not just locked up to please a few who have maybe a particular ideology to push. The DLP supports the Bush Users Group call for an open, independent review into all current parks and services and of past Victorian Environmental Assessment Council decisions. We also support the call for a moratorium on new parks and reserves, etc., while this review is ongoing. Naturally, the VEAC cannot conduct an unbiased review of its own decisions, so a separate independent committee needs to conduct this review. In fact, unless we can fix this recurring problem, it's probably a good idea for an independent review of this type to be conducted every 8 to 10 years to ensure that they are meeting the ongoing expectations of all Victorians. However, before we create another independent review committee that will no doubt start with good intentions but eventually become another political tool, I think it's time that the Victorian public were consulted on exactly what we mean by independent. The VEAC's website states that it was, and I quote, to provide an independent and strategic advice relating to the protection and sustainable management of Victoria's environment and natural resources. Naturally, any community group with an interest in the environment and land management would want to become involved with the VEAC, and that's as it should be. But unfortunately, as often happens, supposedly independent committees, whether it's about the environment, education, transport, or any other aspect of our lives, other groups whose motives are more about political power and gaining control get involved, and the community is excluded from the whole system is corrupted.
Wow.
While it will probably be impossible to completely stop all political bias in these communities, we believe it can be greatly reduced. The independent councils cost the Victorian public tens of millions of dollars, and their decisions can cost our economy hundreds of millions of dollars and radically affect communities across our state. Instead of pouring more and more money into committees that seem to have their own agendas and show little interest in the views of the majority of ordinary Victorians, we need to determine what we mean by the term independent, and the DLP wants to see the Victorian public establish a set of rules for the formation of independent bodies. These rules should be created through a parliamentary inquiry that is fully accessible to submissions from all members of the Victorian public and with public hearings at all major regional centres. Affected groups must be given a chance to be heard and give evidence before such an inquiry. Only after all public hearings are complete and consultation with interested groups has been exhausted would an interim report be released for the public comment. Before the final report, recommendations and agreed set of rules are submitted to Parliament. Thus, the VEC can then be replaced by a truly independent body that represents the will of the Victorian people and eliminates as much political bias as possible. And I can explain to you a little bit why this is policy for the DLP. We, unlike some other parties, believe that decisions should be coming from the ground up rather than imposed top down. And we want to see the community having much more of a say and adopting our decentralist model to support communities to have a say in what's happening in their own backyard, because it's your backyard, it's not someone in Melbourne's backyard, and it needs to be supported so that these communities continue to thrive and grow. So thank you very much.